Going to give this recording stuff another shot. So I'm going to walk through an IRAC um, analysis. So we're going to look at the facts, um, look at what other information we're given, jump onto Westlaw, do some research, break down the research, and then prepare an IRAC. So this hopefully will be helpful to you in completing your first two IRACs, which are due as a duo on Tuesday. And then when you move on to the third IRAC and then the full predictive legal memo that we'll be completing at the remainder of the semester. So let's look at these facts. For my earlier section, my 930 section, we used a little bit of a different engagement ring scenario. And I found this one shortly after and thought it was a little less messy than the one we looked at. So we'll go over this. For my second section that begins at 11, we did cover this particular fact pattern. And for the record, this particular fact pattern is in your textbook. So I believe it's chapter 6. So here are the facts. In Los Angeles, Yasuhiro Sato and his girlfriend Sarah Tanaka met each other at UCLA, and after falling in love and dating for several years, decided to get married. Yasuhiro proposed to Sarah at the Griffith Observatory and gave her a beautiful engagement ring made out of a very expensive cultured pearl. Soon after their engagement, Sarah decided to become a professional acrobat and travel the world with a circus. She left LA and has never been heard from since. In the meantime, Yasuhiro has decided to become a lawyer and asks you if he has any right to get the ring back. He needs it for tuition. For this IRAC exercise, you are told at the outset that a California statute governs the law on this topic. And this would be the statute. You notice that I wrote loosely based on California Civil Code section 1590. So for our academic world, we are going to presume this here is the controlling statute for our problem. A person who gives a ring to another person, who under the law is called the donee, in contemplation of marriage, can recover the ring if the donee refuses to enter into marriage, or a portion of the ring's value, considering all the circumstances as found by a court or judge to be just. Okay? So what I did here is I have rule. So this is the rule of law under which this IRAC is governed. I added with these brackets statement, because in an IRAC, the R has really two parts: the rule statement and then the rule explanation. So the rule statement here is very clear. It's based upon a statute. Now, for IRACs 1 and 2, you will note those problems are based in common law. Common law meaning a cause of action in negligence. So you may find the definition of negligence outlined in a case. You could use that for your rule statement. And then for the rule explanation, you want to use other cases that support the rule statement. So you have here, for this one, we have our statute. Then we want to look and see if we can find cases that support or explain the language of the statute, so we can then in turn apply that rule of law to our facts to see if we can come up with a prediction as to what Yasuhiro can do. Okay, so I'm going to hop onto Westlaw, and I am going to search for some cases that hopefully will support Yasuhiro's request. Someday we'll get on. Huh. I wonder if I can't do that when I'm recording. That would be most annoying. Huh. Oh, brother. All right. Well. Oh. That's crazy. All right, it worked. Now, am I recording is the question. Okay, I am. All right. Now, why is this so odd? Stop. Stop doing this. If I do this thing again? Sorry, guys. Wow, this is new. Oh. Huh. Oh no. I don't want that. I hope to God this isn't getting all messed up. All right. If it is, oh boy. So, here we are in Westlaw. We are in California. And I am going to type section, oh, what was it? What was it? 1590. Promise to marry. How's that? Okay. I don't know why it's only doing part of the screen, but maybe if I go like this. Lovely. Okay. So, anyway, let us go to cases. Yeah, this does not want to. Very strange. Okay, this is fun. Okay. Okay. Don't understand what is happening. Oh, Lord. Okay. I guess it just wants to misbehave for a while so that this recording can be 45,000 hours long. Option Shift P. I don't know what's happening. Stop screen share. Okay. All right. I think we're gonna have to do something different with this because clearly it does not want me to let's see. Yep. Timer. Okay. I don't know why it's doing this, but I want to get out of Westlaw. Yeah. I'm just going to show you the cases I found. So if we go Option Shift P. Wow, this is really interesting. Very fun. How about we go like that? I'm sure there's something I'm not doing right, but let's there's no pause, huh? Show mouse pointer. Maybe that's it? No. Okay. Show floating thumbnail. Oh, somehow took a picture of that. Yeah, it's definitely very strange. Shift Command 5. Okay. All right. Now it's going to do this again. So I'm going to try to get out of Westlaw and back into the document because, this is definitely bizarre. Maybe we'll do that. And we'll just go back to this. Okay, so, bummer, but we can do that in class if necessary. Okay, so I went on Westlaw and I found 3 cases that I thought were relevant to the fact pattern. Shaw versus Shaw, Simonian, this is killing me, versus Donoian, and Priebe versus Sinclair. Okay, so each of the cases I take a look at and I make some notes. First, I get their proper citation format, and according to Allwood, and this one you see is from the California Court of Appeals from 1964. The next one is also from the California Court of Appeals from 1950. And the third is from the California Court of Appeals 1949. So I'm going to read them all, and which I did, which is a critical step to read the case, okay? And after I read the cases, I made some notes. Because I made sure I fully understood the cases. So, for instance, the Shaw versus Shaw case, we're talking about a common law wife who sued for a partition of property when the relationship ended. Meaning, they were selling the house that they shared together. She wanted a portion of the sales. The common law husband had been the sole purchaser of the property. The woman lived at the property for 4+ years. So my notes about the case are, there is a lot of back and forth in background about their relationship, which plays a part in the, quote, considering all circumstances part of the statute, and clearly colored the court's reasoning. The appellate court underscored that it will not disrupt a trial court's discretion over its finding of the facts unless, when viewing the facts in the light most favorably to the aggrieved party, which would be the common law wife here, an appellate court concluded that no judge could reasonably have made the order he did. So that's a pretty high standard for the appellate court to overturn a trial court on matters of its discretion with respect to the facts. Now, you might notice here I put in parenthesis page 526. So that tells me that when I go back to write my rule, I know from which page on Shaw versus Shaw case I found this information. Now, I didn't put any direct quotes here. This is all my own evaluation of the case. And I do recommend you do the same, because these cases are not easy to understand when you're first learning how to do this. And if you don't understand the case, there's no way you're going to be able to write about the case in a clear and concise way. So this way I know this stuff comes from page 526 when the time comes. Case began on page 520. So this Simonian versus Dononian, whatever, case, I write, couple became engaged, man gave woman a diamond engagement ring, and his mother gave her a diamond wristwatch. Woman met someone else and did not marry donor. All right, that would be the man who gave her the engagement ring. Here, I did take a direct quote because it just stood out at me and I liked it. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to use it, but, that is something, this is the process you should go through. The court wrote, the clear meaning of the quoted statute is that the donee of an engagement ring is entitled to retain possession thereof, of the ring, when the marriage contract is breached by the donor without any fault on donee's part. I read that, I quoted it, I read it and I made a quote, and thought to myself, well, this is the opposite scenario, because in this case, the donee didn't want to go through with the wedding. And I left this here. This was taken, so this was all just copied and pasted from Westlaw from the case. This tells me, again, for my later purposes, that this quote came from page 121 of this case. All right? And then here is something I paraphrased. Again, paraphrasing is preferable. All right? But sometimes we do use direct quotes. So the court concluded that the watch that the donor, the man's mother, gave the woman, the watch was not a gift made by a party to contemplated marriage. Plaintiff could not recover it under said statute. So the guy could get the ring back, but he couldn't get the watch back. And I noted here, this also was information I found on page 121. And then finally, the Preeb case, my summary was, couple became engaged, man presented woman with diamond engagement ring. Later, the couple argued one evening and man left. Woman broke off the relationship. Man tried in vain to reconcile, but to no avail. Wrote woman multiple letters, telephoned her, and sent friends to her house in an effort to persuade her to rekindle a relationship. Man sued for return of ring. Court agreed that ring was not just a gift, but a gift given in contemplation of marriage and subject to the statute. But for the engagement, the man would never have given the woman the ring. I did add a quote here. The court had a right to consider the evidence of the relations of the parties that had continued for nearly a year. I guess I used that in my mind to think of the under all the circumstances part of the statute. Again, the court will not interfere with the findings of fact at the trial court. And I made a note that is page 581. If you ever get a chance for fun, you should read this case. It is very, very funny in its old-fashionedness. The case publishes large chunks of the letters that the man wrote the woman, and just it's just entertaining. So, with all your free time, look up Preeb v. Sinclair and read the letters that he wrote to his, quote, darling, who wasn't having any of it. All right. But then again, she had to give the ring back. So I have these arrows now, and I want to show you what I did for the IRAC. All right. Now, I have been doing this for 25 years. So this is not hard for me at all. But I'm going to try to walk you through what I did little by little. All right. I don't expect everyone's to look the same, right? Everyone has their own writing style. But certain parts, certain rules, have to be in place. So for the issue, I chose to write, all right? So we have the whether, under, when. Remember those three targets to hit when you're composing an issue. Again, I started with the under. That's just the way I preferred to do this one. Under California Civil Code, Section 1590, which allows for the return of an engagement ring given in contemplation of marriage when the donee refuses to enter into that marriage. Here's the whether Tanaka refused to enter into a marriage with Sato, thereby forfeiting her rights to a pearl engagement ring after she moved far away and did not provide information about her whereabouts. All right, this is the when. Okay, whether she refused to enter into the marriage and forfeited her rights to the ring when, I have after, but when she moved far away and did not provide any information about her whereabouts. Now, this issue could be written countless different ways, so long as you remember the whether, under, when. All right? You have to address those three targets. Now, the rule statement is going to be the statute. And because this language I highlight it, I go up to tools. I scroll down to word count. I see that this is 48 words. Now, the rule in Allwood says anything over 50. I think 48 is close enough, and I think it's easier for the reader visually to see this in block form. So I will remind you again how to do a block quotation so that you can always go back and refer to this video when you're doing your other work, and I don't have to go insane correcting everyone's block quotes. So let's just say you had it this way. Okay, and again, technically, it's 48 words. So I couldn't say, oh, you needed to do a block quote. If it were 51 words, I would say, oh, you needed to do a block quote. I am making this a block quote because A, I want to show you how to do it, and B, I think 48 words is close enough. So step one in making a block quote, we eliminate the quotation marks. Okay? We take our citation and we hit return. It's going to go on its own line. We highlight the quotation and we single space it. Here, this is spacing, a shortcut to spacing. 1. While it's still highlighted, we go up to format. We select paragraph, right? Because we don't want to change the entire document. We just want to change what we highlighted. Then we scroll down to indentation, and we want to make it not negative, right? We want to make it 0.5 on both sides. All right, and then we hit OK. And now we have our block quote, except there's a little too much space there. All right. So here's our rule statement. Now we're going to hit our rule explanation. So we're going to touch upon those 3 cases that I found. What I decided to do was introduce the cases chronologically for this. That does not always have to be what you do. But because each of these 3 cases sort of says the same thing, the Shaw case being the most distinguishable just because they weren't talking about a ring, but talking about property. But I thought, well, why not do it from a chronological standpoint? They're all pretty close in time. So we decided to go with the love letter guy first. So I wrote in Preeb v. Sinclair, full citation, the California Appellate Court required the defendant, a woman who broke off her engagement and indicated a desire to never see her former fiancé again, to return the diamond ring to the plaintiff despite indications to the contrary in letters he wrote to her after their relationship ended. All right. It's kind of a long-winded sentence there, Liz. Just some notes. So this is what we call, right here, citations within text. This is all text, right? I'm not on your phone. This is text within a document. And this is how we incorporate a citation within that. And in your rule, you're generically the rule, and in your rule explanation specifically, every single sentence needs to have some kind of a attribution of the source, to the source rather. So this is the way I chose to present the Priebe v. Sinclair site. I could have done this as well. That would have been acceptable as well. Okay? I chose to do it this way. One is not right, one is not wrong. It's really just a matter of preference. I like to, not all the time again, I think I did it all the time in this one, but I like to identify the court that is making the decision for the case. And sometimes I will reference the lower court as well. Okay. Second sentence. Another longy. Wow. While the letters contained contradictions as to whether the plaintiff intended the ring to be an unconditional gift, comma, the court concluded that given all the circumstances, the trial court did not abuse its discretion when finding that ownership of the ring was conditioned upon marriage. Okay, so when I say the court concluded, I'm talking about the California Appellate Court, and I threw in, given all the circumstances, never a bad idea to incorporate language of the statute, and then I refer to the trial court. So this court decided the trial court did not abuse its discretion. So for the citation, I put id at 581. And so you might be asking yourself, what the heck is that? And what is she doing? So I put you see a little one here for a footnote to explain what I did. And let's look at the footnote. Id is short for idem, which is Latin for the same. Use id as a short form of citation in the rule when referring to the same source immediately preceding. If the information for the citation comes from a different page of the case than the preceding one, specify id at whatever page number. See Allwood Rule 11 for short form citation information. So, I am still talking about the Priebe case here when I say while the letters contained, all right? So instead of here putting Priebe v. Sinclair, the whole yada 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 citation, if I write id, the reader knows this information came from Priebe. Now, because this information, starting with while the letters, came from Priebe, but it didn't come from page 577 of Priebe. That's the starting page of Priebe. This information came from page 581, which, if you remember, back here, I wrote a little note to myself, remember? So that's why that's helpful. Okay, that's Priebe. Next. Similarly, sometimes it's important to do a little transition. Now, the rule is not a creative writing exercise. The rule is not a place where you say, anything about opinion, what you think will happen, none of that. It's very, humorless, okay? And you don't speak in the third party. You don't say things like, we shall see what happens. We saw this happen. You don't do that. That's not proper for this. But you can put something like similarly, all right, as a little transition. In Simonian versus Dononian, again, I chose to put the site here, but you could put it here after the period if you want. The California Appellate Court offered an analysis of Section 1590 when a man sued his former fiancée for the return of the engagement ring he offered her in contemplation of marriage. Okay. So we know this sentence came from this case, and it was from the starting page of the case. The plaintiff in Simonian, moreover, sought recovery of a diamond wristwatch that his mother gave the defendant soon after the couple became engaged. All right. Now, I found that on the same page 119, that's what this means. This information that came from that sentence is found in Simonian, page 119. In determining that the defendant was obligated to return the ring, the court stated, and I chose to use that direct quote that I had gone over with you a few moments ago. I did think this was quote worthy. Okay? Id at 121. So that means this quote is found on page 121 of the Simonian case. And remember, I had done this to remind me of where I found that in the case. Okay. Then I have, the court arrived at a different conclusion, however, with respect to the ownership of the wristwatch. Id. All right, same page, 121. Since the plaintiff's mother gave the watch to the defendant as a gift in celebration of the engagement, rather than in contemplation of marriage, the defendant was entitled to keep the watch. Again, id, page 121. And I thought this case was good to use because it showed the difference between one gift given in contemplation of marriage versus another gift given just as a gift. And so in one instance, according to the statute, the woman had to give the ring back. However, she did not have to give the wristwatch back. So this is actually a nice illustration of the statute in play. Finally, here's my little transition. In Shaw v. Shaw, the California Appellate Court upheld the trial court's ruling that a common law wife was not entitled to a partition of property when the relationship with her common law husband ended because he solely purchased the property in anticipation of their marriage. Okay, this all comes from page 520. The court refused to disrupt the lower court's appraisal of the facts, and in the interests of equity and justice, left the trial court with the broad discretion that the statute provides it. Id at 524. So you see here, throughout this rule, my things are popping up even when I'm doing this. Throughout this rule, we have the full text of the statute, as one is supposed to always do. You never want to paraphrase a statute. But throughout these three cases, I've only used one direct quote. The rest was all in my words, and it all flows, I think, pretty seamlessly because A, I understood the cases, and B, I didn't throw in a lot of quotes here and there that throw your eye off. All right? So now we're going to move on to the application. All right? So, Section 1590, and the cases offered herein. All right? I don't usually like using these words, but sometimes I do. I try not to fill my written word with a lot of legalese, but sometimes it's just the right word to use. And that means the cases offered here in this document. Make clear that the court will evaluate the entirety of the circumstances when determining the proper ownership of a conditional gift. The woman in the Preeb case ended her engagement with the plaintiff and wished to never see him again, much like Tanaka up and moved away from Sato so she could travel the world with the circus. Right, do you see what I did here? I brought in the Preeb case. I brought in something that the woman did that I think is analogous to something Tanaka did. Okay? And that's what we do with our application. The Simonian court, all right, drew an important distinction between conditional gifts, engagement rings, and unconditional gifts, wristwatch, finding the former is predicated on a promise to marry, a promise that Tanaka broke. Like the common law husband in Shaw, Sato was solely responsible for the purchase of the gift in question, the ring. Given that Tanaka failed to fulfill her promise to Mary by moving away to travel the world and becoming incommunicado, unable to communicate with her, and given the broad equitable powers of the court, Sato should be entitled to the return of the ring. So, again, for the application, you don't see me throwing in all case citations, right? Because I don't need to. I've already done that here, right? I told the reader everything they need to know from these cases in the rule. When I go to the application, I now presume the reader has read my rule. They know what the law is. I'm going to try to draw, analogous situations, sometimes distinguish if necessary, between that law and my facts, okay? But I do think it's important to weave in the names of the cases to remind the reader. Okay, the Preeb case was when they got into the fight and she said she never wanted to see him again. The Simonian case, right, that was the one where the guy gave her the ring and his mother gave her the watch, and I remember what happened with that. And the Shaw case is the one where, right, that wasn't about a ring, but it was about property that was bought in anticipation of marriage. And that's the case where the court made a big deal about deferring to the trial court on its discretion when it comes to findings of fact. All right. So it's nothing fancy, right? It's just plugging in facts, the factual gist of what happened in a case to the factual gist of what happened to your client. The conclusion, again, is nothing too fancy, right? I wrote, although as a practical matter, it may be difficult to recover the pearl ring since Tanaka left Los Angeles to travel the world as an acrobat, under California law, Sato should be able to recover the ring. Sato and Tanaka agreed to get married to each other, and Sato gave her a pearl engagement ring in contemplation of marriage. That's, again, from the statute, much like the plaintiffs in Preeb and Simonian. All right, so you see, once again, I've woven in some of the cases on which we rely. When, as in the Shaw case, the court considers all the circumstances, again, that's from the statute, there is no reason not to return the ring to Sato. Under California law, Sato can recover the pearl engagement ring he gave Tanaka because she left town and they were not able to get married. All right. That is the process I went through. I am not happy that I couldn't go through the Westlaw process with you, but, we can do that in class maybe. So hopefully this will be helpful to you. Now let's turn to your assignments. I just want to... Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so here are the assignments. And then let's just pull up the cases. Oh, that's weird. The assignments. Oh, the cases. And then, what's this? Is this part of it? Oh. I don't know if this is an old thing. I don't think that's it. All right, we're going to get out of this. We are going to save it. And then let's look at this. All right. So this assignment requires you to prepare a full IRAC on the factual scenario. You can read the rules. And this is my short form of what Allwood Rule 11 would tell you about short form citation. Okay. Oh, so maybe we do need that other one. This is strange. Let's see. Okay, yeah, this is it. All right, so Stefan's fall and then Brooke's fall. So we know that this is going to be our guiding rule, right? To prove negligence, you must establish by a preponderance of the evidence that the defendant had a duty, breached the duty, and that breach caused damages. All right. So just looking at Stefan's facts at the outset, remember when we looked at facts like the burglary facts, and we decided, okay, what exactly from the elements of the law that's governing, are there any particular elements that are at issue? Maybe there's more than one, right? And you analyze the facts that way. So we'd be analyzing the duty, the breach, the causation, and the injury, right? So here we have somebody who owns property and clears it of snow and ice in front of her house. That gives Andrea a duty, right? She has a duty as a homeowner to make sure her path is free of ice and snow so that people can traverse carefully, without incident. It's up to them whether they're going to traverse carefully. So she had a duty, and she looks like she didn't breach it, right? She shoveled it. It was free of ice and snow. She didn't breach it. That would be my take, right? So now the sidewalk's clear, but he falls anyway. So we're on the causation prong. And he breaks his leg. Well, breaking a leg is a clear indication of an injury, right? So it looks like there's no problem with duty. There's no problem with breach. There's no problem with injury. But it looks like causation is a problem here, right? Because the facts indicate he didn't trip on or slip on a snowy patch or an icy patch. He tripped because one of the heels on his dress shoes suddenly came flying off. So the focus for the Stefan case is, she shoveled the sidewalk. It was free of ice and snow. How can she be the cause of his injury? She can't be, right? Obviously there's always room for arguing, but we're not going to get that, we're not going to get that heavy, deep, and real for this one. It's pretty clear from the just the language here that he's going to have a problem with causation. And remember, when you have a claim like a common law claim in negligence, the plaintiff has to fulfill every element in order to recover. So if there is a duty, and let's even say the duty was breached, and let's say there was an injury, but there was no causation, the breach was not the cause, then you don't recover. He doesn't recover. All right. Brooke has a little different scenario, right? Again, we've Andrea. She's got that same duty, right? And it looks like she did breach her duty, right? There was some area she forgot, right? And Brooke fell. So that breach caused Brooke to fall, right? But Brooke didn't get any injury. There's no indication. We have to take it from the face value of these facts, right? She had a clown suit on. Who knows whether or not the clown suit made a difference? The fact is she has no injury. How can you succeed in a negligence claim without injury, right? So, whether Brooke can sue Andrea for failing to completely free her walk from all ice when Brooke fell on an icy patch but suffered no injuries. All right, so those are our two different fact scenarios. And that's the things. And here, where are the cases? Here we go. So case 1, case 2, case 3 require you to read. This one Connecticut was one of the first states to hold that a landlord who knows or ought to know of a dangerous condition caused by an accumulation of snow or ice is bound to exercise reasonable diligence to remove the danger. Well, I think that would be helpful to put in somewhere in my rule. This quote, right? This quote right here, again, I don't know if it necessarily needs to be direct quoted, is something I would personally use to, my goodness, to my benefit in the Stefan case, right? What was the dangerous condition in the Stefan case? Well, it wasn't the ice and snow, right? It was the heel of his shoe falling off. What's her name? Andrea? How would she have any knowledge of that? How could she be held liable for that? Right? Here we have, let's see, this is also from this Kraus case. Statute abolished the harsh common law rule that the doctrines of contributory negligence, complete bar. In lieu of these doctrines, we have comparative. Okay. In determining the relative negligence of each party, however, the factors relevant to the assumption of risk may be considered. As long as the jury is properly instructed, elements involving the failure of the plaintiff to comprehend a risk may be specially pleaded and weighted by the trier in determining the propriety and totality of the plaintiff's conduct in relation to that of the defendant. Again, something you could probably use for Stefan here. Again, what that has to do with Andrea and her duty is beyond me. Here we go. This would be good for your rule statement. The essential elements of a cause of action in negligence, right? Nice. We call that black letter law. And again, I would, let's see, I don't see the end of this quote, which is not good. But again, do not replicate this as a block quote. All right. That is not doing what you need to be doing here. This can all be paraphrased. All right. If anything, maybe the test part, I would maybe quote. But this stuff up here, you totally can paraphrase. So this is definitely Murdoch, good for rule statement. This one you can use for rule explanation. And case 3, again... And this is that test again, but that's all right. This is really good for Stefan, foreseeability, right? That's what we use for causation. So I would definitely dig into this stuff for the Stefan. And then the test for proximate cause, this stuff about the injury. Obviously, this stuff here is going to be very helpful for Brooks' case, right? When they're focusing in on injury. So, you can pick and choose what you want. Again, I would use the Murdoch case and even the Ruiz case. You've also got, a declaration of the elements of a cause of action for negligence. So if you want to use one for Stefan and the other one for Brooke, or you could do this when you, let's see, show you something a little fancier. And obviously let's pretend I wrote this. This is not, I'm not going to make this a quote. Let's just pretend. I'll just go like this so that we know it's not a quote. So we got that from, whoa, okay. What is happening? Okay. What is happening? It's Sunday. Okay. We got this from Murdoch, page 566, right? So we're going to go like this. And we're going to make a double space so we don't forget. Okay, and this is the, 559. Oh my goodness. 559 is the page it begins on, and I can't remember again. 566 is where we got the language. Okay, that is how you would quote that. But now you can go like this. Where are we? Okay, so this is page 388 of the Ruiz case. Went back to 388? No. It's a long case. Okay. Make it double space again. All right. So, what does, I have to go like this. What the heck is C also here? This is what we call a signal, okay? And let me tell you, and I don't expect you to be writing with all signals and everything yet, because it's a little more sophisticated, but may as well. 35, chapter 35. May as well tell you what they are. So Allwood chapter 35 rule. Oops. So the first part says, a signal prefaces a citation to indicate the type and degree of support or contradiction the cited authority provides for a proposition in text. Use signals not only before full citations, but also before short citations. So what this, and Rule 35 will give you all the different signals and what they mean. This says, if I want to know that these are the elements of negligence, I'm going to look at the Murdoch case. I'm going to look at page 566. But also, I can find the same recitation of the elements of negligence if I look at Ruiz v. Victory Properties on page 388. Okay? Or, again, for Stephans, you can use Murdoch. For Brooks, you can use Ruiz, whichever you prefer. All right, that's it. I hope this is helpful. We do have, class on Tuesday. And in the meantime, feel free to send me an email if you remain confused. It's really, not to overthink this. These two IRACs are very straightforward. This is just a nice practice for you, putting it all together and using, your writing skills. I don't expect fancy, all right? The best legal writing is clear and concise writing. All right. Good luck. I'm going to sign off and pray that this worked.